In 2025, Uber had its best year ever.
I expect every year to be your best year, right? If next year's not our best year, then I failed.
At the center of that turnaround is Dara Khosrowshahi, the man who took over Uber as its CEO in 2017 amid the chaos that followed the ouster of Travis Kalanick.
I'm not looking to establish moats. It means I'm playing defense. I like playing offense. Our largest competitor in the end is a personal car.
We sat down with him during his 5-day India trip, and the timing couldn't be more telling. On Friday, Uber's closest challenger in India, mobility startup Rapido, announced a $240 million fundraise. India is Uber's third largest market by trip volume, and by Khosrowshahi's own admission, its toughest.
The Indian consumer is super demanding. The one word I would use to describe the Indian market is dynamic. If I look 10 years forward, I think India is going to be our largest market.
On today's episode, we ask Khosrowshahi about Uber's big India bets.
India is the second largest talent base that we have other than the US.
Its new data center partnership.
Building out data centers on a local basis here, I think is strategic. I think it's strategic to the country.
A possible return to food delivery.
It's something that we're going to revisit.
And what AI and autonomous vehicles mean for millions of gig workers whose livelihoods depend on the platform.
We see autonomous vehicles, for example, has actually introduced new entrants to the transportation space, and human drivers on our platform are earning more.
And the question that nobody in Silicon Valley can quite stop asking: is there a partnership coming with the man Khosrowshahi replaced, Travis Kalanick?
I will absolutely look to partner with them because there are very few entrepreneurs like Travis.
Thanks so much, Dara.
Happy to.
We're meeting after 2 years. You've had a packed 5-day trip here in India. Tell us, how has it been over the past week here?
It's been terrific. The one word I would use to describe the Indian market is dynamic. Change is coming fast. There's been a huge amount of growth for us in terms of our business. And I've gotten to understand both the opportunities and challenges in India generally here. But this remains an incredibly important market for us, both in terms of our talent. It's our largest talent base outside of the US, hence the investment in the technology centers. And it continues to be one of our largest and fastest growing markets as well.
So tell us a bit more about, on the policy side.
Yes.
I mean, you obviously met the finance minister. What is it that, you're looking at, in terms of policy changes or your discussions with the policymakers this time around?
Well, I think one of the definitional reasons why so many people join Uber, including myself, is the impact that we're having on the greater society. On a global basis, we've got over 10 million earners on our platform. We now have in India over 2 million people earning on the platform. The last time I came here 2 years ago, it was 1 million, which is a big number, but the expansion here is pretty extraordinary. So we want to be aligned with policymakers as far as how we grow. The goal of this company isn't just growth and profits, but it's to make sure that our impact on society continues to be constructive and positive. And those are the discussions that we're having with the ministers as far as how we grow.
What is it that they have to say to you?
Well, part of it is, for example, discussion on Social Security benefits now and the new policies here, which we're quite supportive of. If you look at historically in many countries, people look at full-time work with benefits and then, let's say, part-time flexible work with no benefits. We think the solution that we're talking about, which is part-time flexible work with benefits, including Social Security, is quite constructive. So we were having some dialogue there. And then also talking about the benefits of offering mobility and economic opportunity to a greater percentage of the population, and how we continue to do so in an environmentally friendly way as well. We very much support the shift towards electrification and EV, but at the same time, we are humble and also realize the challenges therein. We want to be a constructive part of that equation, and that has been certainly a part of the discussions that we're having with ministers, even more so now with the challenges in terms of the cost of fuel now.
So I'm just going to use that as a segue to understand from you, how do you look at fuel prices sort of going up? I mean, there was some announcement yesterday here as well. How does that impact the business, not only in India but globally for Uber, because that's at the center of what you do?
Yes, it's very early here. Obviously, yesterday was, I think, the first announcement as it relates to fuel price increases. So it's difficult to predict the impact on our business here. Generally, globally, fuel prices have been a headwind, especially more recently as it relates to our earners and the cost of transportation, but they've been relatively modest. What we are seeing consistently is the demand for transportation of all types, personal transportation in other parts of the world, food delivery, grocery, et cetera, continues at a very robust pace. We announced recently our Q1 earnings, transactions growing over 20%, top line growing well over 20%. So while it's a headwind, it is a relatively modest headwind compared to the increase in demand for all things on demand in the physical world. So the business continues to grow. It continues to grow at very, very healthy rates. But it is something that we take into consideration. And, we think it just underlies this transition to EVs as being healthy for the environment, but also healthy in terms of the diversification of energy sources for India and many other countries in which we operate.
What you said earlier about you wanting to sort of create more livelihood in India, expanding mobility in a more environment friendly way. One of the ways we've seen mobility companies do that is bike taxis, two wheelers, and just very recently there's been some sort of threat from the state government over taking criminal action against bike taxi. What message do you take from that?
Well, I think what we want to have is a dialogue with the local authorities. There is no question to us that bike taxis are making transportation more affordable for a greater percentage of the population. Bike taxis are often a complement actually to mass transit. About a quarter of our bike taxi trips either start or end with mass transit of one sort or the other. And we're investing now in moving beyond just being, let's say, a car hail service. We used to just start with four-wheelers. Now we have four-wheelers, three-wheelers, bike taxis, and through our partnership with ONDC, are connecting with buses and mass transit as well. So we think that bike taxis should be a part of this entire transit ecosystem. And of course, it's a much more affordable way for earners to come onto the platform and start earning. Some of them then graduate up to four-wheelers, either through our fleet partnerships, et cetera. So we're hoping that we can find that win-win solution where the policymakers make sure that they get what they need in terms of following rules and regulations. But also we continue to expand the availability of affordable mobility as well as a way to earn for a greater segment of the population here.
But in the overall scheme of things, now, of course, at the Go Get event, you announce Uber being an everything app.
Yeah.
In India, I mean, how does that trickle down beyond just mobility, or will you sort of stay razor sharp focused on mobility in India?
The opportunity for mobility in India is enormous. So we do want to stay focused on the mobility sector. That said, we are exploring other areas, for example, logistics. And in particular, what we're quite interested in is hyperlocal logistics within your city and empowering especially small businesses to be able to deliver on-demand transportation just like what you see in quick commerce and or the large companies like a Flipkart or Amazon. What we don't want is that local business, the local grocer, the local merchant, to get lost in this transition to this transition to on-demand everything. We want to empower the local businesses to also offer on-demand, very quick delivery as well of their goods, because we think that a commerce ecosystem that includes large companies, there's nothing wrong with that, but also small businesses is a healthy ecosystem. And we are very early in our investments in commerce, but we think it's a very interesting area for us to explore it.
So just wanted to double click on that, Dara. We spoke last time around as well. Uber Eats for you in the US is as much as 50% of your
Yes.
revenue
Yes.
now.
It's a
You
huge
obviously
part of our business. Yeah.
huge. And I remember asking you last time as well, is food something that you will look to do again in India, considering, you want to be in the delivery ecosystem, and food and grocery has become a large part, whether you look at Amazon, Flipkart. I
Very
mean,
much so.
Amazon's now doing quick commerce in the US,
Yes.
taking a leaf out of what they're doing here in India. So is that something that you will revisit at all?
I believe in continually asking myself hard strategic questions. At this point, when we look at the ecosystem in India, the mobility ecosystem and the logistics sector, local logistics sector, is quite promising and has enormous potential growth ahead of it. But it's something that we're going to revisit. In Europe, for example, we have relaunched in food in a number of markets that we pulled out of. And there's so much potential here in India. But at this point, I think to the extent we get into food, it'll be through partnership, not through ownership.
Is there something on the anvil?
Stay tuned.
You seem to be very focused on partnerships as a
Yes.
company. And I just want you to talk a bit more about the Adani partnership on the data center. Is that the stack which will play out in India on the AI space, the infrastructure part? Because obviously the foundation and the models and the labs are mostly between the US and China.
Yes.
And how do you see, it sort of unfolding here?
Well, I think that AI generally is going to be empowering a greater and greater percentage of the information economy. I think the changes that are going to come are extraordinary. Building out data centers on a local basis here, I think it's strategic. I think it's strategic to the country. And India is quite strategic to us on a global basis. And I can't think of anyone better to partner with than the Adanis. I have known them for some time now. We have built a lot of trust together, and building out a local data center here to power the entire business, but also the AI innovations that are coming up is something that I'm very excited about, and I'm thrilled to do it with the Adani Group.
And what's the kind of timeline that you've set for putting this together?
Well, based on the discussions that we had with them, we all want it to happen tomorrow. We know that may not be possible. So the timelines aren't clear here, but the intent certainly is.
And just talk me through, the two tech centers.
Yes.
Which also you've announced between Bangalore and Hyderabad. How much of Uber's engineering and product, etc., are already being done out of India? And with these two being set up, where will it sort of take it?
Well, India is the second largest talent base that we have other than the US. We always believed in the entrepreneurial talent here. The education system is incredible, but there's an entrepreneurial spirit here that we wanted to plug into. And so our approach here in India was always building engineering teams that are what we call full stack, that are entirely responsible for the products that they're building. So they don't have to check with the US, et cetera. They can just go. One of the changes that we're seeing here is, frankly, early on, we had a hard time. We were able to attract top engineers, but we had a hard time, for example, attracting product managers, first-rate designers. That's all changed. Now we're very much swimming with the current. And the new tech centers represent that to some extent, which is we are early making investment. We want only the best. We're seeing the rewards of that. The product innovation that we're seeing here is core to the business. Like they are building every part of Uber, whether it's the rider app or two-wheelers or merchant tools, or actually the AI stack, the core AI stack. And so when I see return on investment and I see extraordinary talent, I want to lean in. And so the investment in the tech centers are a reflection of that. I wouldn't be surprised if we add, even more tech centers. This is just the beginning here. The talent, the technical talent, and the entrepreneurship and the hunger that I see here is wonderful, and I want more of it.
How does that tie up with the fact that your CTO very recently said that you had exhausted all your tokens in 4 months of the year?
Our engineers are working, they're working hard, and they're
Where
building
do you-
agents to work for them as well.
Where do you get the confidence to hire more engineers and set up, these tech centers at a time when, almost 60 or 70% of the code is being done by AI?
My view is that AI is building out engineers with superpowers. And if the next engineer that I hire is one that has superpowers, I want more. The business is growing very quickly. It's growing even more quickly here in India. Our engineers love building local product that has local impact. So at this point, I see growth ahead of us, both in terms of business and talent. The impact that AI is going to have on society 5 to 10 years from now, that's very tough to tell. But right now, I want to build, and I want to build faster.
Dara, just to add to the earlier question on, I mean, how do you see the whole AI ecosystem build out play in India? I mean, do you essentially think that India will become a more of a backend what it was in the software era as well? You're doing a bunch of these things. You've done these tech centers. You're also very big on data labeling, from India, and all of that sort of rolls up into India being that backend center. Is there more to it that you see, or?
Well, I think that there are all kinds of technologies, both hardware and software, that are needed to power AI. And for example, data labeling, there's a big part of them powering this future. And for us, it represents another kind of work that we can offer to our drivers and owners on our platform. One way of looking at Uber, most people look at us as a transportation company, but one way that I look at Uber is we are a platform for work. And just the first type of work that we empowered had to do with the transportation sector. But now with AI, there's all kinds of other needs in terms of labeling, both for digital tasks, but also physical tasks as well. And so why not play a part in that? And why not involve our workforce in India on that? But that said, I think that what we are building and what our talent is building is far more than the back end. The back end is part of it, but we are building ground up features that are going to be a part of not just our service in India, but our service globally. So it's back end and it's mainline. And again, I think India is going to play a huge part in our innovation for the next 10 years.
Mhm. And can you, talk a bit? You mentioned India now has 2 million workers.
Yes.
Globally, there are 10 million plus. What does it mean for the jobs? Not just in India but across the world. Also, as you sort of more
What does
and more.
AI mean? Or
What does AI
generally
mean?
that?
And also, as Uber sort of moves more and more towards autonomous vehicles, how does that impact this worker base?
I think that there's a lot of drama around, and justifiably so, questions around machines replacing humans, so to speak, human labor. But if you look historically, we have seen machines augment human labor, which has led to very significant productivity gains. That is what we're hoping to see going forward. We think that's a constructive way forward, and certainly supported by history. So we see autonomous vehicles, for example, where we've introduced them in the US at small scale, admittedly, has actually introduced new entrants to the transportation space, more consumers coming in, and human drivers on our platform are earning more, which is a great result. It really is a win-win. But there are these questions that all of us are asking. Will it go from augmentation to replacement? I don't think anyone knows. But we want to be a part of that transition in a responsible way. We all want to sprint to the future because it looks bright, but we want to do so responsibly.
Just want to come back to, how partnerships have become really key for Uber.
Sure.
If you look at autonomous vehicles, I mean, you had a business there which you sold off.
ATG, yes.
Yes. And now you're a marketplace for a Waymo and Zoox and others in the US. Is that a regret again, Dara, or is that something that you would continue to do, wherein you will just aggregate these robotaxis?
Yeah, we're very much committed to the partnership strategy. And I believe that companies should focus on what they're great at. We are great at aggregating demand and supply on a global scale that no one else has even come close to. And just like I want every qualified, safe human driver on our platform, I want every qualified, safe robot driver on our platform. We don't think that, just as I don't think that the race for the AI foundation models is going to be won by one company, right? OpenAI looked like it was.
Who are you betting on?
Oh, well, I'm betting on the ecosystem, right? I think OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, and many others are going to build this ecosystem, and there won't be any single winner. I think the same is true as it relates to autonomous driving. The Waymos of the world, Zooxes, WeRide, AvRide, Pony, Baidu, these are all companies that are racing to the finish line as it relates to autonomous driving. And we want all of them on our platform so that we can have a win-win of more transportation available more safely, more affordably to a greater percentage of the world's population. And of course, very high utilization of these robot vehicles that are safe, but also quite expensive.
Correct. Is there any truth to the fact that Uber's working with Travis for some sort of autonomous vehicle venture? There were some reports.
We are working with Travis on the restaurant space already. He's our founder. We have an enormous amount of respect for him. And if he looks into other parts of autonomy, I will absolutely look to partner with them because there are very few entrepreneurs like Travis.
Do you think a lot of your partnership and the strategy which you've done, and now it's going to be almost 10 years since you took over, is very
Flown fast.
Yes. Yeah. But it's so different from how a founder would have led it. All the moonshots, etc. I mean, do you think in this age of AI, this playbook works vis-a-vis you betting on, whether it is autonomous vehicles or things that typically founders do at a time like
I don't
this?
have the counterfactual. All I can tell you is all I can do is my best here. Since I joined the company, the business has grown 10 times over.
Yes, yeah. And you've had your best year?
Yeah, we've had our best year, but I expect every year to be your best year, right? If next year's not our best year, then I failed. I get to stand on the shoulders of giants, but the business has grown, and I like winning as a team. When you get to celebrate success with a room full of other partners and friends, it's a heck of a lot more fun than celebrating success alone.
Where do you see India has grown? in the past 9 years. In terms of revenue, I know it's your second, third largest market.
Third largest
Yeah,
market in terms
but
of trips.
yeah,
If we have a leaderboard of countries, and India keeps climbing the leaderboard, and if I look 10 years forward, I think India is going to be our largest market.
Wow.
I'm certain of it. Obviously the demographics here, the entrepreneurship, the growth, the kinds of policies that the PM is putting in place are very constructive. India is not without its challenges, but the potential here is extraordinary. And I think, I'd be very disappointed if India doesn't keep climbing the global leaderboard.
You spent some time with founders in Bangalore on your
Yes,
trip this
yes.
time. What are you making of things that are happening in the tech
I was
space?
super impressed. The Indian consumer is super demanding. So
You said that.
yeah, I have said that, and
You have said that.
that remains the fact. So I see founders who are who learn to do a lot with a little, but at the same time, the scaling of businesses here and the speed of scaling is pretty extraordinary. And the kinds of businesses that entrepreneurs are now building, you look at defense tech, you look at robotics, you look at drone technology, the breadth of the Indian ecosystem has really impressed me. And when I came here a few years ago, it tended to be versions of other companies established in the US or other parts of the world. There's real originality here, and there's real first principles thinking here. So I was actually really impressed with what I saw, and I'm certainly going to follow the tech ecosystem here.
Dara, can you, last time when we met in 2024, you said that a lot of competition for Uber in India is coming from, young upstarts
Yes.
versus some of your traditional rivals who you said may have been distracted along the way.
Yeah,
Where's the
yeah.
next sort of phase of competition for Uber coming in this country?
Well, we see plenty of competition. The transportation sector is large and thriving here. And we have, of course, grown here very quickly, and we continue to grow. There's competition from, other startups, that we're seeing in the two-wheeler space. Well, there's competition all around, but our largest competitor in the end is a personal car.
I think when you met the Consumer Affairs Minister earlier this week, there was also some conversation on EV transition happening.
Yeah.
Now, in your view, Dara, what sort of restricting India sort of adopting EVs in a mass way, and what role can Uber really play?
I think EVs need to be more affordable. I think that the residual value of EVs hasn't been established the way that we need it in a healthy market for our drivers. And I think there needs to be increased investment in EV infrastructure, especially recharging infrastructure. We are leaning into all of those, but we need partners to do so, both on the private and public side. We're making progress, but frankly, not as quickly as I'd like.
What do you think should change there?
I think more investment. I think that the EV ecosystem generally, in the US, around the world, the transition to an EV ecosystem has been more challenging than I think many anticipated. But the benefits are there. These are better cars. They're better for the environment. So we don't think that temporary setbacks should hold companies like ours or governments from leaning in and continuing to invest. And we're determined to invest. And we're looking for partners. I just came from a breakfast meeting, both as it relates to the vehicles themselves, financing, charging infrastructure. We're going to keep leaning in.
Globally, what percentage of your fleets would be electric?
We by far own the largest global fleets. Europe is leading as it relates to the transition, and we have certain cities like London where the majority of new cars coming onto the platform, actually the vast majority, are EVs, and we're probably more than 30% of vehicle kilometers are EV. but we've got a lot of work ahead of us.
Understood. Just coming back a bit on AI, Dara, we saw Zomato founder last month talking about the moat for companies like Zomato and Blinkit being in the physical world. And that was more of an argument against the fact that AI agents will sort of replace platforms. But what's your kind of take on it? Do you think that if AI agents start booking trips for users, then Uber becomes more of a pipe than a platform? And how do you prevent that?
First of all, I'm not looking to establish moats. It means I'm playing defense. I like playing offense. And for me, we are the supply that we're establishing in terms of supply of mobility of all kinds, whether it's two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, as well as connectivity into public infrastructure, allows us to be a necessary partner for anyone who's building an AI agent. But if that's an open AI agent or if it's another agent, I want Uber to be a part of that experience as well. So I'm not looking to play defense here. As long as we innovate and build delightful products, then I think we can stay ahead of the game.
But wouldn't it be more in OpenAI's interest to say, have that traffic on their own agents rather than Uber doing its own?
I think, of course, but I think if we build wonderful experiences with Uber as well on the Uber app, I think we'll be more than fine. There was a time, for example, where on Google Maps, you could hail a Lyft or an Uber. But ultimately, people came to Uber because it was just easier. We're a brand that is a part of so many people's lives. And I think if we continue to bring ease of use and context, for example, 3/4 of the ride requests on our app, we have already predicted. So it's a one-click ride request. We have context whether you tend to go to work or you're going to dinner or you're going home, etc. As long as we have that context and then we build intelligence around that context and make it magical and convenient, I think we'll be fine. And of course, I'm happy to work with third-party agents as well. Again, I lean into these new technologies and I'm quite confident of our position in a changing world.
How's the Dara agent? The one which
Oh God, it's embarrassing. I don't know. I prefer the real Dara, but maybe I'm not a neutral party.
Yes. We should be asking your team which one
Yeah,
to
exactly.
prefers.
Rob, how's it?
All
We're
right,
training up based on India data today,
Wow.
this week.
Yeah, look forward to that. Thanks so much, Dara, for doing
Absolutely.
this.
Happy to do it. It's my pleasure.